Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Reconnect webinar, where we're going to talk about reports, control, and follow-up optimized data with an overview. Today, I will, my colleague and I, Mikkel, and myself, will give a presentation about the possibilities with KMD WorkZone, and we are going to talk about how to create dashboards and what you can do with dashboards, and we are going to talk a lot about different reporting tools like, for example, Power BI. My name is Rasmus, and I am a lead business specialist here in WorkZone. I've been working with digital process management, with reporting, configuration, etc. in WorkZone. Today I have my colleague Mikkel, who will do most of the presentation. He has been working a lot with Power BI. And he will give a demonstration of what we can do when we take data from WorkZone out of the system and put it into, for example, Power BI. So I will actually just give the word to Mikkel now, and then he will start his presentation.
Hi. My name is Mikkel, and I'm a business consultant in WorkZone, where I work with the configuration of WorkZone and with data for various needs. And let's get into it. So our agenda for today is a three-step agenda. So we'll start with a quick overview of how we can utilize WorkZone also as our data source. And then we'll show different reporting types. Mainly we'll go into a Power BI demo, as you can see in step 2. And in the end, I'll show a comparison of WorkZone up against both Excel and Power BI for reporting. So let's look a bit more into it. So this slide actually represents how WorkZone has evolved as a platform, and it represents the goals and ambition that we have with WorkZone. Of course, the full slide is all of the elements that are included, and it's all interesting for WorkZone, but today we'll focus on the underlying gain intelligence part. So with this, we mean business intelligence. And business intelligence is the analysis of historical and current data that can quickly uncover actionable insights so we can do strategic choices forward. In other words, you can say that the data collection in WorkZone can be visualized to quickly generate value-adding overview of our data. Presentation today, and for this project, we have used 5 tools. We've used 2 search tools, WorkZone Search and WorkZone Query Builder, and we have looked into 3 different reporting tools. One is the WorkZone dashboards, and then we have Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Power BI. We'll focus mostly into Power BI, but all of these have been used for this. This is actually spurred on by an innovation camp that we had earlier in the year, and we were given 2 different cases. And I will just show you here that these are the representation of 2 cases. So I'll just explain them quite quickly. So the top one here is our first case. In our first case, we were tasked by, we needed to collect permission applications to ride on electrical bicycles, otherwise known as e-packs here. And we needed to give an overview of different KPIs, such as processing time for a permission. And we also wanted to show how which status different applications were in. And the second case, which is the lower half of the screen you see right now, that is for the later monitoring of accidents on electrical bicycles, where we had to find data on the accidents themselves, the injuries that followed the accidents. We were tasked with showing critical traffic points as well, and severity of injuries, and if possible, also show demographics for the people who have crashed. These are built into our these are created in our client, and this is where the data is put in. And as you can see, some of them are red, and that's quite important for this part, because for reporting, you will always need to make sure that you're rigor when you collect your data, because it all comes down to what data you have to actually create your report. That's why in this case, a lot of the fields have been marked as red, otherwise known as mandatory, meaning that we will streamline the data so all the data is collected. These data points are also what are used for the presentations of the reporting that you'll see throughout this webinar, and can create exactly the visuals that you'll see later on. Here is a quick presentation of how these can be presented inside our client, and this is through the dashboards in WorkZone. In the left side, we have the permission collection. And in the right side, we have the second case of accident tracking. These are made by creating searches inside our client, and they can then be turned into various visuals such as counters and timelines and speedometers. These are just two examples. These are actually on from the data you saw in the previous slide, and this is how it can be illustrated. There's also some interactivity built into these dashboards, so you can actually hover over specific areas, and you can then click an area to get a list of what is included in this specific set inside the data. And this, of course, makes WorkZone Dashboard a great administrating tool for businesses and basic data overview as well. However, there is some limitations to it, and that's what we'll be looking at today, the further report of our data so we can use it while going on and get some more insight to what is actually inside our data. Let's begin with a quick glance at Excel reporting. There we go. So, of course, all reporting tools have strengths and weaknesses, and Excel has them as well. So in the left side, that's where we can see this definitely strength of Excel. Financial modeling especially. This is due to the cell-based way Excel works. So each cell is an individual, and it can draw information from all the other cells that you choose from, which means that it can act very flexible. It also has a vast array of formulas, as the three you can see above the sensitivity analysis. And all these can, as a combination, create a very specific result while using your data. So here's where it really shines, Excel. You can create extremely good analysis of data, specifically as well for financial modeling. When we then move to the right side, and this is where we talk about showing things in a visual way, there are some lacking points in Excel. So you can do reporting visually. As you can see, we have two graphs. It's the same graph, but it's just to show the slicers. The slicers are the small squares. By pressing the slicers, we can adjust what is shown in the visuals. And that works in Excel. As you can see, the top one has the full set of data. And in the lower one, I have sliced in two different slicers to adjust the data overview. It gives us a quick understanding of the data, and we can specify what we're actually looking at. However, the visual themselves aren't interactive. It's only the slicers that are slicing. There's also a limitation to how many visuals that are actually in Excel. There is also a little problem with Excel and handling larger sets of data. So when there's a lot of data and things have to be calculated, Excel tends to lack in the processing power. But that we can get around by using other programs such as Power BI that we will look into in a little while. So what data are we actually using for this, or how do we do it? Let's look into our little tool here. Our data that we're going to use in Power BI afterwards here is used through our WorkZone search tool called Query Builder, where we find our data. And by using Query Builder, we have all the WorkZone data as OData, which can be utilized straight into Power BI. And for this, you can see this lovely little picture of it. This is how a search in our Query Builder is used and made. And Rasmus will just quickly do a little short demo of our query builder.
Yes, I will do a brief demonstration of our work zone. As you hopefully can see, I'm trying to be both the presenter and the one talking. So right now it seems I have a little bit of issue with my picture. So it seems like you're going to look at Mikkel while I'm talking, but we just wanted to make sure that no one was thinking that that this is just something that we have created in Excel and then shown in Power BI. So we just wanted to make sure that we can that you guys know how to get data out of work zone. And this is what I'm going to briefly demo here. This is not a demonstration of the query builder itself, but just how to get data out of work zone. Right now, I've opened up my one of my internal environment, my sandbox environment, and I will just show you here. If you go and say I want to have a new search and search for a case, let's say we find case group here and we say food authority. There it is, and make a new search. What will happen is that you will get your search results down here. You can see I have 73 items, and I have this little export to Excel. If I press this one, this is then it will download an Excel sheet that has a link into WorkZone through this OData API. It already has the filters, so every time I open up the Excel sheet, it has the connection to WorkZone, and it will try to refresh the list here, searching for all cases with the case group through food authority. It's the exact same case when we build searches in OData, except that we can get much more data out of WorkZone by using our query builder. So I'll just do a quick search here, all files, all cases in the system, where the case handler, that is myself here. And I also want all documents that are linked to these cases. So what I'm trying to search for right now is I can see there are 29 cases in WorkZone that I have created, or actually where I'm the case handler. And I can also, I expand it, as we call it, to the documents as well. So I get all the cases and I get all the documents that are archived or linked to those cases. Just as we have the little Excel button in the WorkZone client, we have this button called Export Query. When I click on this one, I get, as you see here, it downloads an Excel spreadsheet. If I open up this one, what will happen is that I will get I will be asked a few questions about enable macros and so forth. If I accept everything, in a second, this could be open in protected view. That's really good. But what will happen is it will actually open up and show everything. We have a little, I'm sorry, but we have a little problems with our internal environments. But it will open up a sheet here and create a table where all these data you see in the query builder are represented. So as Mikkel mentioned before, we have Excel, really good functionality where you can do a lot of calculations and stuff. And it can do a bit more than WorkZone dashboards can do it by itself. And this is one of the ways we can get data out of WorkZone and into, for example, an Excel spreadsheet. Another way to do it, if we export a query from query builder or from the standard search in WorkZone client, it will, as I told you before, it will the file, the Excel spreadsheet, will contain a link that will get exactly these data I have selected up here, all the cases where I'm the case handler, and the document linked to the cases as well. If you want to change this afterwards, then you have to either create a new search or go into Excel and change what we call the OData filter. That is the what is it called? That is the row down here. It says that this is the filter. So either you can change that directly in Excel, or you can actually create a new query in Query Builder and then download the new Excel spreadsheet. Another way to do it, and that is if you this is the bit more advanced version. That is because we are using this OData API to communicate with our backend and our database. It is actually possible both from Excel and from Power BI and various other applications. Go in here, get data from other sources from the OData feed. When I do this, I need to give the URL to our environment. I have it up here. This is the sandbox, and I have this /OData. If I put this into my OData feed, I have to do a Windows logon. Hopefully this should work. Just have to select the OData there. I will just do. I can't remember which one. It should be working with this one. But no, this is not, sorry. That is because this is not my current credentials. It's some other credentials. But what will happen is I will actually get the entire data model. So everything I see in this entity list, I will get this in Excel, and then I have to link the different tables together. So this is way more advanced, but this is also way more powerful in the way I can find all the cases. I can create references down to the files or the documents. Sorry, I can create references to contacts. I can create references to basically every table in WorkZone that I want to work with. And when you do this, Mikkel will actually show a bit of this later in the Power BI demonstration on how we link these tables together. But when you do this and you start to work with this, you can get basically everything out of WorkZone and into, for example, Power BI or Excel, and you can create really powerful reports or overviews, dashboards that you can use that basically give you a huge amount of information about your business. So this was just to show you that this export query functionality, or if you go into Excel or Power BI and get data from the OData feed, this is how you get information out of WorkZone. So I will give the word back to Mikkel because the presentation is way more interesting than this one. So just a second, Mikkel, can you share the screen?
And we should be back on my screen. Perfect. Thank you, Rasmus. And as you said, let's go into Power BI and look at some of this reporting. And there we go. This is Power BI, of course. I do want to do short disclaimers as well. The design of these are meant for you to see what is actually possible, how many things that you can do in a dashboard like this. There's quite a vast amount of different visualizations you can use. For reporting itself, this might be too clustered, but it's just to show you how many options you actually have. Also for this, of course, you can only show these kind of data if you actually keep a strict data discipline, which we then have used WorkZone to do to gather this information. Quick on the way you use Power BI. So as Rasmus mentioned, we have the data in here, and the rows and rows of data that he talks about, well, they can look like this. This is just a long set of data. And as I explained earlier, Excel works in a cell-based version. Here, Power BI is a bit different. It works in a column-based method. So everything is in columns, which also means that all our data is in columns. The columns in the left side here are imported, and the columns in the right side are actually some that I have with DAX programming, as you can see here in the top, created variables that are calculated for a row, which can then be used later for visualization and making a reporting even better. The connection of different data models as well. This is where we do it. in the models. So actually, it's as easy as clicking and dragging over to another data set. So each of these squares is a data sheet, and we can just connect them, for example, by case ID, and things are connected in our report. So that's how we technically do that. And to get the OData feed, we just go to get data and import our OData from there. So let's look into this. This is the first case that I explained before. So the application for permissions. As you can see, there's slicers up here, as I showed in Excel as well. These slicers will slice all the data, of course, but they will also adjust the full amount to be only what the slicer shows. Right now, you can see 100% of the data here. It's 99 different applications. If I, for example, slice for the region of our capital, everything will show as now we just have the data from this region as 100%. So if we wanted to get a quick overview of what is going on in this region, we can do it by using a slicer like this. We can also slice in a different way. We can actually slice by using the visuals themselves. So for example, the map here, if I slice by the same region, things are sliced up again. But now you can see that it actually takes the amount that shows as cases in this region and takes them from the full amount. So quite quickly, we can, through this dashboard, see both specific data for an area, or it could be a region, municipality, or the state of cases, but we can also see them compared to the full data set, which makes it quite nice to see and fast to get an overview of the data. You might recognize from inside Workzone that you can have these counters in Power BI. They're called card visuals. This one is just a count of how many cases there are. We can actually do that inside Workzone as well. But what we can't do in Workzone is calculations. And this is where we can use Power BI. Here, I can actually do a calculation on how long it takes from cases to be created until they're closed. And by doing that, we can do an average time, how many days a case is open until it's closed. This is, of course, not the best overview, seeing that it's 2,165 days for a case to be created until it's closed. That might be a bit slow. But what if we want some information on, well, is there any way we can do this faster? Well, let's look into some of the other regions. Are they the same as the average for all of it? Let's look into the region here. Actually, they only spend an average of 1,923 days. So they might be doing something better when it comes to going through cases, since they can go from created to closed cases in permission slips faster. We can do this for other regions as well and get a quick overview and see, well, actually, the region of Midtjylland is slower than the other ones and slower than the average. So we might have to increase our efforts here. There's a nice visual over here as well called the tree map. It can, for this one, it shows every municipality we have, and they're located by the amount of cases. So it actually shows both in the size of the square, but also in the color, how many there are. So the larger the square in comparison to the other, the more cases we have. So we get a fast overview of our data and see, well, where are the most people, which municipalities are the most people applying for these e-bike permissions, which is an overview that really gives you a fast way to look into the data and make choices if anything needs to be done. Or, for example, you can see if Ballerup would move further and further up in time. And of course, we have these lovely tables. The tables here are actually drawn straight from the metadata in Workzone. So it's the metadata that is filled in while doing your data collection in Workzone. And it gives, of course, a quick overview of what each case is, and each of the cases can be found in different ways. I'll show here with color correction, for example. For a faster overview, you can color different elements. So you can see that on time, the status deadline for permissions that are on time is this lovely blue. This is also represented over in another visual, meaning that these two are linked in the visuals. So if I will do, well, I have a deadline here, I can sort by status and I get no deadline. Well, that was not the one I wanted to see. I can go the other way and see overdue, not the one I want to see either. If I then just want to see all cases that are on time, I just slice for that, and then I have all my on time cases. You can also see a color in the state. These are also color corrected with the other visual down here, where you can see which state the different cases are in. So it makes it really fast to see, well, how many do we actually have of cases of permissions that are new or being processed. Let's, for example, look into, well, we only want to see new cases. And then we see something funny. Here, of course, you can see the averaged amount of days it takes for a case to be closed, because none of these are closed. But you can see that actually 50% nearly of our new cases are overdue, and that's not the best thing in the world, you might say. So if you would like to work with this, we can actually, when the data is drawn in through the OData in WorkZone, we can actually link to each of the cases individually. And just by clicking this, you enter into your WorkZone client on this specific case, so you can work on it and maybe get further. So not only can it help you report, it can also help you get into your case and work on the specifics that you find inside of the data. There's, of course, a lot of visuals. I'll show another visual here, a way to find the data. So here we have what's called a drop-in. This is all the applications in total divided into each of the region. And then we can click on a region and see all the municipalities underneath that has any of the data on it, specifically the applications. You can then change your overview of the data in your table by clicking, for example, Slagelse, and you'll get the 3 cases for Slagelse, and all of the tables will adjust to this to give you a quick overview. You can also go a step up and say, well, I want the full region of Sjælland here, and it'll do that. You can see it both in the map, but also in the cases. So you can make your overview of your data work easily for you, and you can go straight into WorkZone and change things up. But let's get into case number 2, because I have quite a lot I want to show with that one. And as you might remember, this is the case of incidents on electrical bikes. And here we see something a bit different. Let's start with the map. So before we had the regional maps, which are areas. Here we were tasked with getting the specific areas in the traffic points where accidents happen. This could be if you need to look at, for example, maybe there's red lights in a cross that is not working or out of order more often than others. Here, each specific crash has been pinpointed by a coordinate system, so we can see where all of them are. Similarly to before, we can build reports that are color corrected. So as you can see, we have the green, red, yellow, and black, which shows the severity of each accident. These can be represented in the map as well, so you can color coordinate it like that. You could also have color coordinated it comparing to which kind of accident type it is. For example, if you have a solo crash or a pedestrian collision, you could be able to see it on the map. But it's hard to do 2 colors at the same time, so just by hovering over, you can also get the data of each of the individual crashes. For example, this one is a solo crash by a female on an e-bike that could go 25 kilometers per hour, and she had less serious injuries. If we just want her specific data, I can of course click it, and everything else changes compared to her data. And by clicking it again, it goes away. Another way that you could report this is of course single point data, but let's say that instead of accidents, these were stores, and you wanted to look into the revenue of them. By reporting the revenue of it, these can actually be adjusted by the data. So the larger or the stores with more revenue, will show up as larger circles. So just by looking at the map, you could see which of your locations would have more cases on it, or revenue, or what it might be that you want to look at. Yeah. Of course, there's the same slicers and the same cases here. By the way, this is reduced to the period between 2012 to 2015, and I'll show you why in a second. Because this is only 70 cases, and actually there's 500 cases here. But sometimes our data cannot always show what we want to see like this. This is just a lot of individual applications of data. Each of these pretty much represents a field of metadata from Workzone. As this figure you have down here combines both age and the gender. But let's look at this one in the lower half. Here we can see a trend line. So we can actually see that the amount of cases of accidents that has happened in this period from 2012 to 2015 is decreasing, which seems like a good thing, especially seeing when the case actually said that there's a growth in sales in e-bikes. But the reason why I wanted to show this is actually because we can see the trend due to the data. If I drag this slicer out and take the full amount of data, here you go. Now you can see we have way more dots everywhere on the map. But it's hard to see anything on the trend line. This can be a problem if you want to gain a quick, and remember, business intelligence is about getting a quick overview so you can do strategic choices from what you see. Here, we can't really see what is going on in the trend line, but we can use the trend line and compare them to others to get a quick overview and actually start making some decisions from what we can see in the data. So let's look at that. And I have this example. It's the same case, but imagine that we have 4 years in a row and we do 3 campaigns. One campaign in 2015, another one in 16, and a third one in 17. These are, by the way, set up so each slicer only reacts to the ones, the visuals that are right next to it. This can just be done by going into Format and Edit Interactions. It's quite easy, and then you just click the ones you want to interact with. But that doesn't matter right now. What can we look, or what can we find through this data? Well, we can see there's a time span, of course. And when there's no campaign, remember the first one, we don't have a campaign against bike accidents. There's a slow growth in the accidents. You can see the trend line is slightly going up. Well, that alone doesn't say that much. It says that people are crashing more and more. The second one, let's say that this is a year where we show pictures of accidents to people as a campaign. There's a clear decrease in the amount of crashes we have during the year. So clearly this might do something. We don't always know, but this could indicate that this kind of campaign is working. In the third year, we do commercials about wearing safety equipment. And this is fun because actually there's the same amount of accident throughout the year. We also have the most amount of accidents in just 1 year. And interesting enough, when we talk about safety equipment, the severity of all of the accidents together seem to be exactly the same as some of the others. So this might indicate that safety equipment campaign is not the best way to do it. So you can always, right from here, suggest that strategically, maybe this is not the way to look when we look into doing a campaign. For the fourth year, we do a braking distance awareness campaign. And we see a slow decrease in the amount of accidents. And what is really interesting here is as well, we see actually that, well, the accident severity is mainly less serious. So maybe this campaign, not only does it decrease the amount of accidents, but the accidents are also less serious than in other years. So maybe people are braking before hitting things. This is quite cool information to get straight out from your data. It's your data telling you what is going on. Yes. we can also get insight into a different variation. This is the same area, the full all 5 regions of Denmark. But let's say that we want to compare region against region. We can do that as well. And we just click on here. There we go. Here you can see that the period in the slicers are set for the same days for all of them. We go from the beginning of 2014 on until the end of 2016. We have sliced for the region, different regions in all of the 4. I know there's one missing, but whatever. This is not that important right now. And then you say, well, remember what Power BI is. Well, it's about getting easy and insightful information that can be used for strategic choices. Can we do this from this example? Let's look at the data. What is the first thing that we see? Well, we can quickly see in the middle here with the trends that in all of the regions, we have an increase in the amount of accidents. So it seems like we have a national increase in accidents happening, which means that, well, it might be a national trend, of course. We can also see that, well, the capital region has 3 times as many, or actually more than the combined amount of cases as the other regions. That's interesting, right? We can now see that, well, while we can't say from the data why this is, we can say that, well, there's more accidents here, so you might want to do a campaign in the capital region first. When I say that we can't say why it is, this is also down to what your data that you have collected can actually tell you. It doesn't, this data doesn't, for example, take into regard if there's in fact 10 times as many e-bikes in this region compared to the other ones. That could be a suggestion, but you don't know from the data you have here. And this also just goes back to that you have to be clever when you clever and think out a strategic way of what information you want when you choose to the data you collect in the beginning. But what can we then tell from this dashboard or for this report? Well, we can see that there might be a lot of accidents happening in the capital region. However, they are mainly actually, if we hold over here, we can see it's 97% of them are less serious incidents. And that's interesting, right? Can we see, well, we have in the other regions, well, generally people are getting more hurt, more severe accidents, and we actually have lethalities as well. Is there any way that this data could tell us something usable? Well, let's look into, might there be a connection or correlation between if there's more 25 kilometers in our e-bikes versus 45 kilometers in our e-bikes? A quick overview doesn't really show any tendencies here. It doesn't really show any specific trend going on, so it might not be the right place to look. Then we spot here this lovely square of a lot of dots. It shows all the gender. So we have the blue ones male, the pink ones here are female, and only 5% of the accidents in the capital region are actually male crashes. So you might think, well, in the other regions where we have more severe accidents, there are more males riding e-bikes. So maybe our data is telling us that men in general get more hurt when they get into accidents. So let's test that if that is true. Let's go down to the region of Midtjylland and say, well, who is actually in these lethal accidents? And we can click it and we'll see, well, actually it's 0% men. It was just females getting into fatal accidents. Let's see for severe accidents. We can just do that as well. Same. It is only females who get into the severe ones where you get very injured. Let's just stop looking at that and we look at another region where we have fatalities. How is it here? Well, actually, again, there's no males involved in fatal accidents. And for very serious, well, there's none either. So our data first gave us a hypothesis about what could this be? Why is it happening? We thought, well, maybe we need to do a strategic choice towards male attendants in riding bikes. We need to inform them that they need to ride more carefully, but the data could quickly give us information that this is not true. This is not something based on gender. At least it's not males getting more injured, and that's not why it is. And that is what I find so amazing about combining the data that we can collect in WorkZone with a reporting tool that can show us these kind of details that are interactive. Because in a second here, we've just built on a hypothesis, we've tested it, we've gained knowledge that we can then go on with. We can see, from the previous one, which campaign should we use? We can see that, maybe we should focus on the region of the capital, seeing there's more injuries here. But it could also be that we want to reduce fatalities. And then we know we don't have to specifically go for men because it doesn't seem like there's any overlap there. And that's what I find so amazing, that we can kind of make the data work for us, so we can focus on moving forward instead of having to just sit and look at our data for too long. Here it just does it by itself. And we go back to the presentation again. As you can see, you've seen a couple of different dashboards before. There are so many different ways to design them. You can color scheme them the way you like. And you can build them more simplistic. You can build them to be specifically for the needs that you have and the information you want to draw out. Power BI can actually be a really flexible tool for creating these reports, which makes it awesome, to be honest, when we build reports. It gives us a fast overview, and we can use this for our strategic advantage. And as I promised, I have a comparison as well. Each tool, of course, has its own benefits and uses. And combining some of them, we can create knowledge from the data that we gather every day. While Excel shines mostly maybe in financial modeling, I find the combination of the collection of data and the data discipline through WorkZone and the interactive visuals and the easy data plugin to Power BI in a league of its own. As you've seen, the data that was shown in our dashboards in WorkZone had potential for day-to-day work and administrating your work there and working with the data, but we can get further knowledge by combining the two services. And each of them have their own right where it should work. And actually, I think we are a bit faster through this than expected. We are at the end of this. We're very happy that you joined. And I don't know how much Rasmus has been answering in the chat, if any questions have been there. But otherwise, you're very much welcome to ask us a question now. And if you find any questions later, you're also very much welcome to contact us, write us on anything, and we'll look into it. Yeah, thank you.
As Mikkel said before, we just we end this live event. I forgot to say that at the beginning of the session, there is a Q&A where you can ask questions. So if you have anything, then we will keep the line open for a few minutes, and of course we'll answer your questions if you have any. And again, as Mikkel said, you have on the screen right now, you should have our contact information, and you're welcome to write an email or give us a call, and we will of course be there to assist you as good as possible. And for those of you who, or as Mikkel said, if there has been any questions, there are actually no questions so far in this webinar. So yes, but as Mikkel said, thank you for listening in, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to see this. The idea with this webinar was to give you a quick demonstration of what is possible if you actually spend some time with the different tools. And the important part here is that there are different tools to use and different applications. And as Mikkel said previously, all of them have their different strengths and weaknesses. This time around, we wanted to focus on how far you could actually go by using an application like Power BI. So we hope that this gave you some inspiration of what you can do with your WorkZone installation, and to see how you can actually use the data in WorkZone to visualize in different applications. So there doesn't seem to be any questions. So basically, we will just say bye for now. This webinar will also be uploaded to different video platforms, I've been told. So you can listen in if there's anything you want to see again. And from my understanding, you will also get the link to the uploaded version. But thank you for listening in, and have a good day.